Hello, watch people. I'm here with my old mate Paul Thorpe here today, and I'm going to ask him a few questions. He does a lot of good for all us trusted traders and all the watch people out there and buying and selling. I just wanted to ask him a few things and thank him for everything he does. So, how are you, Paul? How's things?
I'm very well, thanks, Spencer, and thanks for those kind words. Rather humbling, but nice to hear nonetheless.
So, how are we doing? 2 weeks into lockdown, 2 weeks to go. Feels like January was like a week ago.
Yeah, this year's been really weird for all of us in the watch trade. Whether you're still buying or selling, or whether you're like me and just making videos for people to watch, it's been a tough year for us to all, to deal with. I think, but maybe it's probably sorted out a few men from the boys in the watch business, I would imagine.
Yeah, quite probably.
I
Um,
think those that some of the part-time players, if you like, those that haven't perhaps got the wherewithal to go through the stickier times, may have kind of fell off the ladder along the way. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but that's the impression that I get.
so, Paul, tell me. I mean, I know you're semi-retired now, but I don't believe a watch dealer ever fully retires. What was sort of something that really stood out in your mind? Something you bought, or something that was a watch that you always had a passion for? That came across your table.
I always like to try and be as honest as I can, Spencer, and I'm going to do that right now. The truth of the matter is, I think, and you'll probably recognise this when I say this, is that when you're a long-standing watch dealer, one fine watch tends to drift slightly into another because you get a little bit blasé, you get a little bit used to handling so many watches, and to some degree, the sad part of it is, I guess some of them lose a little bit of their sparkle over the years. I've done a video recently on the most valuable watch that I consider that I own, and that's probably in real terms worth about 100 quid. It's my grandfather's pocket watch that is the most precious watch that I've ever owned. But I remain a big AP fan. That is my passion, if you like, really. Obviously, I like Rolex, especially from a retail viewpoint. When you're dealing, Rolex is the brand to be involved in. But from a passion point of view, I would say AP for me, really, in general, if I'm honest.
Sure,
But
sure.
ultimately, I think it probably takes another watch dealer to recognise and perhaps fully appreciate what I'm saying. I don't mean it in a disrespectful manner to the watches themselves. I guess it's a bit like being a child doctor. I mean, I couldn't doctor children; it would upset me too much. You have to become hardened to it, don't you? And as dealers, we become hardened to it, I suppose, dealing in watches.
Sure, sure.
Do
I
you
see.
recognise? Do you recognise that?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Something that comes across that I see now, I look at some of the watches from sort of 80s, 90s, like 16234s. And when I
yeah.
see one now, I used to see dozens of them, and they're a bit rarer now handling them. And when you see one in beautiful condition, or a blue dial or something, actually, one came across our desk the other week, a black onyx dial, and they really stand out because we're all seeing obviously the new models, the 41s, the 36s, and they're common. Like, you're seeing them every day. But when you go back to something 30 years ago that's in beautiful condition, it's like, wow, I remember that. And
Yeah.
although it's a bit retro-y, it's not, it's bordering like a 90s date just. It's bordering on sort of vintage, but it's not vintage at the moment. But there's something quite special about it, especially where, like, new old stock, that sort of scenario where it's got everything. Is really, really
I
quite.
think I think you're absolutely bang on the money there, Spencer. I think that for me right now, if I'm being frank, I would rather have. I mean, if you offered me a new old stock 16013 date just versus a brand new one from the ADs today, I'd take the 16013 all day long because, like you say, they are semi-vintage. They're starting to get into the collectible criteria. If the condition's right, of course, the condition has got to be absolutely spot on. But definitely, I agree, and probably because we were both running around as fairly young men in the 1980s. But I remember that and this is not any kind of sales talk because I don't even know if you still got it, but the last time I come over and saw you, you had a mint virtual new old stock
That's right,
1803 day
1803.
date.
Yeah, yeah.
That was an absolutely stunning thing. Now, where are you going to find another one of those? Hard to find.
But this
Hard
is
to
it.
find.
It's not always about the money. I've still got that piece. I'll tell you the other thing I've got, some old Submariners with stickers.
Right.
And again, we listed some of these. Not bothered if they sell or don't sell because
Yeah.
they're only going one way. And this is often what people ask me, what would you invest in? Something about the condition, obviously sports, but condition on some of these things, and they're an older piece, is just magical. You can't go and get it. See, everyone can go and get a brand new 2019, 2020 sub. You expect them to be unused in great condition. But when you go back 30 years and you get the sub of that period in that condition, it just blows people away because you don't expect it. We all see the tatty ones with the banana bracelets and the worn out and the chips out the case. But when you get something mint, it's just unbelievable. It really is.
I think in 2021, due to it depends which way Rolex take their distribution next year. But if it stays the same next year as it is right now, you could see a bit of a renaissance, if you like, if that's the right expression, for some of the watches, say, particularly from the 90s. I mean, the 80s as well, but the 90s, they're going to be a few more about in what you would call tip-top condition. But generally quite hard to find. I think the only thing perhaps holding them back in the 21st century may be the fact that they're all 36 mil. And people today are looking for something maybe a little bit bigger, but apart from
that would be
I
fine
think,
for women. But I think a big tipping point was from the plastic, the 16013s, 014s, to the 233s, 23. I mean, those ones that, I mean, like myself, you've probably seen loads of the older ones where people used to put in the mineral glasses, which we would spot by checking the serial number. But those are far more reliable. I mean, before the 69173, 6917s, that was an unreliable watch, and that's nowhere near on the caliber of when they changed those. But they're great pieces. They're great pieces.
And then you get the rare ones that come along with the American style class as well. Had a few of those over the years. I mean, they're exceptionally rare. I'm still hoping that we can get some kind of trade deal with the US in 2021 because there's a massive market out there for UK, European watch dealers. Obviously, there's a lot of people, there's a lot of watches, but right now, obviously, we have the import duty as an issue. We can't go out there necessarily and buy freely because we've got to declare them when we come back, and then they're 20%. But if we can try and get something through, it might be a bit more difficult now. But if we can try and get something through, I think it would be good for the watch industry.
Do you think that's something
in
that
the
could
UK.
happen, Paul?
I think it's less likely now.
Right.
I think it's less likely. I think it's less likely with Trump gone. I think I'm not so sure that the new president-elect is going to be as UK friendly as Trump was. But we'll see. I mean, from what I can gather, I'm not a politician, but from what I can gather, the deal is sort of like, 75, 80% done. It's just a matter of if that's now swept under the table and, we're back to square one. But I hope not, because I really would love to work with the American people a lot more than we do, a lot closer.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Would be good.
Absolutely.
Paul, how do you manage all your emails? I mean, I know you go on that I get a lot of calls, but you must be up there as well, or inquiries. How do you manage all that? Do you sort of do a 9 till 5 and say, I'm not dealing with anything now till the following morning? What's your sort of day? What is it that you...
Absolute truth of the matter is, mate, I'm not an early riser. I don't normally get out of bed until about 9 o'clock. My wife and I will have a coffee, and then I'll sit in front of the computer and catch up with what's come in overnight. The truth of the matter is, I don't actually cope with my emails very well at all, in the respect that it's one of the biggest regrets that I have being a watch YouTuber or being a YouTuber in general, is that I can't reply to everyone. It will probably be an exaggeration to say hundreds, but I get dozens and dozens and dozens of emails every week from people that are looking for help, looking for assistance. unfortunately, there's only so many hours in the day. What I do try and do is I don't talk about it a lot, but there's a few people that come through to me. I do try and read every email. That's the main thing. I
Sure.
try and read every single one. Rather than give someone a short, curt reply, I just tend to leave it on auto respond, explaining to them that, look, thanks for your email. I have read it, but I can't reply to it. But there are one or two that come through that, ping the heartstrings, if you like, and I have to get involved in. I've got a young lad at the moment, he's only 18, just been scammed out of his first Rolex that he's been saving for since he was a teenager. I'm trying to help him. I've got an elderly lady at the moment that's been a victim, and I'm trying to look into that. So it's a simple matter of trying to juggle the hours that you've got in every day whilst being a family man, because what you've got to remember is, apart from the money that you guys spend with me and the Google revenue, it's basically an unpaid job. So you can't let it get carried away.
Yeah. No, look, I think what you've done for some of the scams and trying to support people, much the same with us. Whenever we speak to someone, we do our best and try and offer what we can. And we always send emails and we tell people, firstly, of your videos and what you have to say about do's and don'ts, and whether someone's got a VAT number, HMRC, pays rent, and just guide people. The other thing, obviously, the thing we've always gone on about, that you don't need someone to come to your house. It doesn't need to be done that way. You go somewhere and just safe watch trading. And my line to everyone is, I always say, the watches are what bring us together. I want you to feel comfortable with who you're dealing with, and Paul Thorpe will vouch for us, and that you're comfortable. The watch doesn't matter, it's replaceable, it's a sum of money. But if you're dealing with someone that you're comfortable and happy and safe about how you're doing it, and that's what's most important. But
Spencer, sorry, mate. I used to spend a lot of time teaching people how to deal privately and between each other, and this is how to do a private transaction safely, etc. But it's got so bad. There are so many twists, turns, and so many people out there that are so clever in what they do. I've almost given up in trying to help people buy and sell privately between themselves. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't do it. What I'm saying is that there are so many pitfalls that I'm wary of trying to offer advice on that now, because even if they follow that, these scammers always come up with a new angle. So what I've tended to have done over the last few months is, and I'm not just talking about you guys that sponsor my channel, I'm including all professional watch dealers in this. My latest advice really is to, bite the bullet and deal with a professional, no matter who it is. It doesn't have to be one of my sponsors or one of my trusted dealers. Check that dealer out, invest in that dealer, check his history out. As you say, is he VAT registered? Is he a proper dealer? And put your trust in them, because the flip sides to private buying and selling now has just become a bit of a minefield, which is sad, because but it's the world we live in. They're
Absolutely.
a very valuable sought after commodity that are very small, and that makes them a target.
I don't know. Something came around in the trade recently. I don't know if you got to see it. And like you say, this happened with Harrods. The Harrods AP boutique had someone go there with. They were looking at an AP. It was £67,000, man and a woman with a child, and they switched the watch. They were caught. They were caught, but this was on there, and I think it was in national press as well. I'm not talking out of turn here, but this is it, and this is a high level, and this is in a very one of the top stores in London, Harrods. And I believe they caught them. I didn't see.
They did.
Quite a few. They did. So this is it. People have just got to be wary and careful. But the other thing, Paul, and you probably get this as well. Everyone thinks, "Oh, it won't happen to me. I know what's going on." But it can happen to anyone. And the most sophisticated frauds and mad things. I mean, I heard of a gold one years ago where people were selling fine gold, and it was fine gold, and they took them to a hotel room, someone was telling me, and we were talking tens of thousands of pounds and kilos of gold, and they're handing the money over, and suddenly there's an explosion in the room, and the cases are switched, and everyone goes, quick, we better get out before the fire alarm goes off, and the guy who's bought his money, his bag that he's left with, it was exactly the same bag, but it didn't have what he thought was in it. And these things go on. They do go on, Paul.
Well, there was one in the trade last week that came through via the system that's set. I can't remember the name of it now, but it was where some guys had taken some gold chains into a jeweller's. The clasp was hallmarked, but the chain itself, so the clasp was hallmarked and was proper gold, but the chain itself was silver, so it had weight to it, but gold plated. So, you know, they think of everything. I think the bottom line is this, Spencer, is that, look, I don't know how many years we have between us in the watch industry, probably, I don't know, best part of 80 years between us, and we still learn.
And you're 60 of that, obviously. I'm only 20.
We're still learning. You know, we still hear of new things that are coming up. So, you know, if people like us can still hear of things that we've not seen before, then for the general public, I suppose the message is, getting back to my point, the message is that I think wheeling and dealing in watches privately now has just become a little bit too risky for my liking. I wouldn't advise anyone that I loved or had strong feelings for, I wouldn't advise them to be meeting people in car parks, in pubs, and, you know, motorway service stations, the local McDonald's. I just wouldn't do it these days.
No, absolutely. Well, Paul, just wanted to really thank you for today. And if everyone could subscribe to Paul or press the like button or any comments, really thank you for everything that you do. And Paul, the other thing, we've spoken about this a number of times, and unfortunately we can't put a date in the diary, we can't talk to an event, but we've spoken about either you coming down to my showroom, maybe hiring a private venue and having drinks and inviting your supporters, my supporters, watch people, whether it be central London. Maybe it's something we can talk. Look, we can only talk about it at the moment. We can't put something in the diary due to everything going on. But I do think, like with your Brighton Watch show, maybe it's something we can just do. It probably won't be this side of 2020, but in the future, where we can meet up and watch people could come and meet the real Paul Thorpe rather than seeing him on a video.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, Spencer, we've spoken about it, and I'll just say it as it is. We both want to put something back into the community. I think that, you know, I've probably done as much as I can via YouTube, but we do want to bring the community together a little bit more, and God willing, with a fair wind and a vaccine, if people choose or not choose to have it, whatever the case may be, when we get back to the proper normal, then I think people will see what I'm capable of, what people like yourself are prepared to do. And we do want to put some events on for people wherever possible, completely free of charge, where everyone will be welcome, where they won't be told there's a waiting list or their money or they're not welcome or whatever. We're going to welcome everyone. And yeah, we'll just have to wait and see. But until this is all over, mate, it is what it is.
Well, look, thank you for your time today, Paul. It's really great speaking to you, and let's hope we can get together soon.